You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to Barbell Logic, the podcast, Beast Over Burden. I'm your host, Nikki Sims. With me is Andrew Jackson.
Hello.
Hello. And we are your guides for training through the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully you listened to us last week talk about nutrition. This week, we're going to talk about training.
The ghost of Christmas present, past and future.
What?
Gourds. I like them.
Lamps?
Mm-hmm.
I love lamp.
Do you like gourds?
What are we talking about? Nah.
Yeah.
I could take them or leave them.
Okay.
Here nor there.
Underrated in my opinion.
Yeah. They're just for Halloween decoration.
They can be, but man, acorn squash, delicious. That's a gourd.
Okay. Interesting tangent.
Shall we talk about lifting?
Okay. Yes, please.
Okay. Part two.
Navigating training through the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why we're talking about this is because the holidays, kind of like summertime, tends to be a little spottier around consistency.
Okay.
Or people have ambitions that don't really line up with what they're actually able to do.
Expectations aren't matched with reality.
Yeah.
Often.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like we talked about in the nutrition episode, is getting to a point where you're not going to beat yourself up about anything. But it's nice to look ahead and plan, guess what's going to be reasonable, and see how you can keep training and going to the gym if that's a possibility for you, or maybe do other things that support what's important to you.
Yeah, my number one rule of thumb for this phase of the year is to lower my expectations. The number of external variables that I can't control or that I don't want to control is so high. Travel, stress, sleep, food, schedule, just tends to be all over the place. And what I've found is that when I expect my training to continue to go as it has been, that usually doesn't play out very well. Not to say that I haven't had some great training stretches through the holidays. In fact, some of my best training has been through the holidays. But it's in spite of a ton of variation in schedule, stress, etc. And so when I say lower my expectations, it's not that I'm just like throwing my hands up and saying, well, I guess I'll train in 2024.
Right.
It's that I allow myself to, I think, as you say, namaste through things like not having the equipment that I usually have, not having the ability to train at the same time that I usually do.
It's a tough time of year for home gym owners.
Yeah. Unless you're staying at home through the holidays, and then it's a great time of year, but otherwise you're probably training while visiting family, or even if you do train at home, maybe you have visitors who are staying with you.
Yeah.
And that
it's hard
throws
to get
things
away.
out of whack.
Or, God forbid, they want to train with you and you have to entertain and lift at the same time.
That is the most introverted thing ever. Many people would be thrilled to train with their loved ones. And instead, you're like, well, why can't I be by myself?
I have to change my expectations around it. If I'm going to be lifting with someone, it is a different experience than my normal lifting.
Fair point.
And if I wanted to be my normal lifting by myself, it's not that, because I want to change that mindset in order to enjoy the experience with my loved ones, which I would like to do, honestly. And I've done that recently. It's the best time, but I do have to change my mindset around it.
Perfect. That's exactly what I'm talking about when I say lower expectations. Maybe it's just change expectations, or just allow for more variation.
Yeah.
And it's going to be okay. The part that feels like lowering expectations is that sometimes along with that means you might not be lifting as much weight.
Which can feel like a bummer.
Which is frustrating. Now, like I said, I've also hit PRs through this phase, which sometimes has come because I wasn't able to train as much as I wanted. So I got a little unintentional low stress period of time and then a little caloric surplus. And then you show up for the
Rolled into the gym.
New Year's total and crushed it.
Got
Other
a good
times,
squat bloat.
Yeah. Other times I've tried to prepare for a meet the week after New Year's and just completely
Also,
crashed
who
and
is
burned.
hosting a meet the week after New Year's?
John Thrush up in Washington, depending on where you are.
Thank you for that.
He would do a New Year's meet first week of January, and it was a great meet. It was a lot of fun. The Dariotis Memorial, I think it was. Anyways, for those weightlifters out there who know what I'm talking about.
You gave me a full answer to that question.
It was an annual meet, and I would train through the holidays thinking that I would just show up and
this is weightlifting.
Yeah. So, which is not, expecting the snatch and the clean and jerk to not be affected by all those variables I was just listing is unrealistic, which opens up a whole nother can of worms. Like if you are legitimately preparing to total a PR or to compete in a meet through the holidays, you need to set the bar high and be disciplined. That's a whole nother conversation. But I think for most of our audience, the goal is to sustain training through the holidays without feeling like you're failing somehow.
Yeah.
And that's why I think lowering expectations is useful.
And that can look like having shorter sessions. So maybe you take out the accessories. It can look like not being super set on the weight that's going to be on the bar, but rather like a level of effort that you're trying to achieve.
Or how the weight will feel. Like if you forget your knee sleeves or you don't have chalk or you're using the slippery bar.
You have to bench heavy at a Globo Gym bench.
The weight that you
don't do that.
Are used to feeling like a warm-up might feel terrible.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Let go of it. You can still get a great training day.
Yes.
And I think it would be not a good choice to be hell-bent on getting the weights and then realize on the way up to those weights, they feel really heavy. And then you just grind or hurt your shoulder on a crappy bench press setup and just like trying to white knuckle your way through those weights at the expense of the rest of your training for the year.
Right.
Not worth it, in my opinion.
On the other hand, I've also had those days where you show up and start warming up, feels terrible, but the top set goes fine.
Okay.
Or the work set goes fine. So it's kind of a mix of both, which I think the mindset aspect of it for me, I've posted about this before, that I like to train curious in general, but especially through periods of time where you've got lots of other variables. Who knows? You really don't know, honestly, until you show up and try the weight.
Yeah. And it's worth doing that for sure.
Try it. Don't just chuck it out the window, but show up, do your best. Forget the rest, as Tony Horton would say. Shout out to P90X, beachbody.com. We're not sponsored.
Oh my God.
But Tony Horton, if you do want to come on the podcast, would be great to have you on. You went through a P90X phase, right?
You bet. Remember like the first time I did the plyometrics one, I was so tired.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like so spent. I just sat on the couch and I was like, what just happened?
Oh, wow.
Also, I'm sorry to my downstairs neighbors for all of that phase of my life.
I wish I had video of you doing the kickboxing episode.
I will tell you the kicks were not very high, nor was anything fast.
You were La Mahina, though, probably. He would call one of his models.
I don't remember that. That sounds fun.
Yeah. Anyways. Yeah. So show up, do it, do your best, forget the rest. If you need to back off 5-10 pounds, okay.
Oh, do it. That's good. It'll feel really good, honestly. It feels good to like find a weight that still feels like work
Heavy,
without like
but doable.
a punishing load.
Would you say?
Yes.
HBD. Oh my God. That voice. Oh.
For those of you who haven't been hanging out with me and Andrew all weekend,
my God.
for some reason this voice is just coming out of my body.
You are somehow a 19-year-old frat bro and a 60-year-old man.
Trapped inside a 38-year-old lady's body.
Yeah.
So go me.
Go you. It has me questioning things about myself.
Anyway, we need
But
to
I'm
wrap this
into
up
it.
because we need to watch football.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Right. Let's go. Back to training.
So what can people do to kind of give themselves an edge if they want training to go pretty well? I think there are some preparations people can take to set them up for success
Like what?
before they forget the rest. Like if you're going to be traveling, seeing
point.
what's around you,
Sure.
seeing what their holidays hours are, seeing if they're open or closed, and also talking to your coach about if you're going to be training or not. If you're not going to train, let them know. It's nice. So then they don't spend their time programming only to find out that it wasn't anything that you planned on doing.
Yep.
And then they'll be better equipped to give you a guide of, okay, so if you're not going to be in your normal setup, let's have you, if you're not going to be using your bench monoliths or something, let's have you do this weight and this reps. And they can change the workload so it's still a useful workout for you to be doing in consideration of the equipment you have at hand. And it might be different equipment, different variations that you normally do, but it's nice to have something planned ahead so that it is an opportunity for you to go train. You can tell your coach, I'll have this equipment. I have 1 hour. What can I do? It might be a good idea to, instead of maybe doing a 4-day week like you normally do, maybe like a 2-day or like a 3-day week, something like that. So just plan ahead in terms of where you're going to train and how much time you think you're going to have, and tell your coach that.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
I would say something is always better than nothing. As we learned through the pandemic, those that did something, even if it was only push-ups and lifting dog food bags, those that did something fared much better than those that did not. If you're traveling, pack wrist straps and probably an A7 bar grip shirt for the terrible bench pads that are out there in the Globo gyms. Although if you do your homework, you probably could just about anywhere find a good gym.
There are so many nice gyms now.
Yeah.
It's worth just like going to Google, type in the address where you're staying, search nearby for powerlifting gyms.
We should plug Nikki's app. Doesn't she have like a gym finder app?
It's a buddy finder to lift with. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When that releases, we need to put that out there. But obviously Google is pretty good at finding things.
Also, app idea that I would love someone to actually make is that gym finder app where it lets you know, like, do they have chalk? Like, is this a powerlifting gym? Is this a CrossFit gym? Like,
you don't think
criteria.
Google is sufficient at giving you that information?
It takes a lot of stalking. You have to stalk the photos.
Sort of triangulate Instagram, Google.
Yeah. I've gotten pretty decent, I think, at gym stalking online.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice if there was just like a way to how like Yelp sorts things for
you need gyms. The Yelp for gyms. Does Yelp do gyms?
Yeah, but like they don't have criteria like open 24/7, powerlifting setup. Yes, you can use chalk. Yes, it has a sauna. They don't have like that detail of filtering.
Yeah.
So wrist straps, bar grip shirt.
Which, by the way, shout out to our very own Matt Reynolds.
Yes.
For having I think we're at like 1.5 million views.
On wrist wraps.
No.
Right? Oh, wrist straps.
Well, wrist wraps is the 1.5.
Yeah.
But I think wrist straps
I think that's also
like 1 million views.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
So if you're curious about how to use either.
Oh my gosh.
Look it up.
Go to our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Barbell Logic wrist straps. Okay, those are really good. What about, should they bring a belt? What about their shoes? Choices for fashion.
I mean, during the holidays, I've squat in my hiking boots.
Oh, those are great shoes to lift in, actually, because they have a pretty rigid sole.
Yeah, they actually worked great. They had an elevated heel.
Yeah.
They were
great convention.
Solid. That's the kind of lower your standard stuff I'm talking about. If you can pack your belt and your boots or your
training boots,
your lifting shoes, great. Pro tip, I've been, much to the chagrin of my traveling neighbors, I've been packing my lifting shoes on the outside of my backpack. I've been using the metatarsal straps to
attach to your backpack straps.
Onto the straps of my shoulder strap.
Your backpack ends up looking like a face that's wearing dangly earrings.
Yeah. And I just knock the head of everybody on both sides of the aisle.
Sorry, I'm a lifter. Excuse me, sorry, I'm a lifter. Sorry, I lift weights. Yes, so sorry, I'm a lifter.
I keep expecting somebody to be like, are those Nike Romaleos?
With orange?
Do you lift?
Do you like Oregon State?
Nobody once
Weird.
has asked me if I lift or struck up a conversation about lifting.
Andrew has a travel face, though.
Yeah.
Your travel face is nothing you can say is important enough for me to listen.
Matt always talks about how people recognize him in the airport and stuff. And I mean, I'm not as much of a celebrity as he
You're up
is,
there.
but well, you know.
Been on some lifting videos.
There are actually 2 how to squat videos on the internet with a combined total views, I think over 2 million.
Oh,
or
wow.
It's approaching 2 million.
That's rad. I'm the same with rows. Somehow I'm the row girl.
But nobody's ever tried to talk to me, but it might be because I have resting
off face.
I mean, my dad has the same problem. He just looks angry all the time, but we're not actually angry. I probably don't want to talk to you, but I'm not angry.
Yeah. Okay, this is helpful for me to know.
Any hoot.
So yeah, and then wrapping your lifting belt
wrap
around your
that
backpack,
around the
or
backpack.
if you put it in your suitcase, like make it go around the perimeter.
Yeah, the coil technique, it's hard to describe, in words, but you tuck what do you call that middle tong?
Prong?
The prong. Tuck the prong in and then feed the belt through the loop.
Well, no, I put my belt around the perimeter inside my suitcase.
Oh.
So then it doesn't really take up the space of itself to the biggest extent. So
that
it's
is
like
a huge pro tip.
Yeah, it's like I don't even know how to describe this.
That's
just
one
like
way to
bump
go.
it up against the edge. Yeah.
Right. The perimeter. That's the perimeter technique.
And then you put everything inside of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I found that works a
I
little bit better.
typically do the full coil where
And then
you have
you
like
can
the
usually fit
cinnamon
something.
roll of belt.
I like that.
Drop
And
in.
you can usually fit something like your wrist wraps inside the center.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. I typically will stuff as much as I can. If I put the lifting shoes in the bag, I'll put as much inside the shoe as possible. Could be wrist wraps.
Creatine.
Although be prepared to get pulled over in security for your protein powder and your creatine.
Which I often bring creatine. I have it in my bag right now and I've been traveling with it regularly. But some poor woman, of course, at Bellingham Airport International, which is like the most ridiculous TSA ever, she had protein powder that they were like scanning. And then I heard the TSA agent on the phone calling someone and was like, we have some protein powder here. And it was just like unreal. Just if you can avoid that airport.
I think
they're a little over the top.
Everybody's had a protein powder story getting pulled aside for sampling, or maybe not sampling, but it's pretty common for
just a little sus.
A Ziploc bag of a kilo of vanilla protein powder gets flagged for some reason.
Yeah. And then also, eating and sleeping, like you were mentioning earlier, those are going to be a little bit different. So if you want to feel good when you're training, stay hydrated, eat a lot of protein. I think it's good to keep up your creatine if you can. And then just mind your fooding choices.
Wow.
Your feeding choices if you're drinking.
If you're drinking
booze.
Okay. Yeah.
We talked a little bit more about that on our nutrition episode.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Call back.
Yeah. Like you might feel like a turd sandwich.
Yeah. Or you might feel good if you're on the caloric excess.
Basically anything that I say, Andrew will say, or it might be the other way. And
that's
good.
Right. It could be. I mean, that's what's interesting about
you got to be open-minded.
Variables is you don't know how you're going to respond. So you have to just show up. I think that's the key. Keep showing up. See what happens.
Namaste. Alrighty. Well, if this didn't get all your questions answered, we are doing a Q&A episode later this month, and we'd love to get your questions.
Created more questions.
So email us, podcast@barbell-logic.com. Let us know what questions you'd like for us to ramble on about. We'd love to hear from you. Any other wisdom you'd like to drop upon these listening ears?
If you don't have any questions.
It's okay if you don't have any questions. Sometimes that's fine.
I'm trying to think of what I could say that would be the exact opposite of what you just said.
Also, don't ask us questions. It's another idea.
Just open up your email
and close it.
See what happens.
Just show up to your email.
The key is to open up your email. Type in the Barbell Logic address, which is...
Don't forget to wear your wrist
straps. Damn it.
Oh boy. Okay.
There we go.
And hopefully you got a little nugget of value out of this. If you did, leave us 5 stars. And we'll see you back in a week. Maybe we'll do the Q&A episode then, maybe the week after. We'll see what kind of questions we get. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.